Ethan adjusted the control panel, his fingers moving quickly over the buttons as he monitored the energy output from the mining drones orbiting the asteroid field. The station was quiet, a little too quiet, except for the low hum of machinery and the occasional beep from a console. He had chosen this remote outpost precisely because it kept him away from people, away from the endless bureaucracy of human space colonies. Out here, he could work, fix things, and think. That was enough for him. The sudden chime of the communication panel startled him. It was not unusual for the station to receive messages, but this one was different. The screen flickered, and a holographic projection of a woman appeared. She wore a long, flowing uniform with iridescent patterns that shifted in the light. Her posture was perfect, and there was an unmistakable aura of authority about her. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "I am Princess Liara of the Terrorless Empire. You have been selected." Ethan frowned. "Selected for what?" "To serve as my fiancé." The words hit him like a meteor. "Wait. What?" "It is not a permanent arrangement," Liara explained, her eyes steady on his. "It is ceremonial. You will accompany me to secure an alliance. Your presence is temporary, but necessary. I have observed you. You are suitable." Ethan rubbed his forehead, trying to process what he had just heard. "I think there's been some mistake. I'm just a human engineer. I'm not royal. I'm not anything." Liara tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "That is exactly why I chose you." Ethan stared at the projection. He had heard of royal visits, ceremonial engagements, and political games. But this was something else. A princess selecting a random human from a far-off outpost? It sounded absurd. Yet, the calm authority in her voice left no room for negotiation. Before he could respond further, a team of elite alien guards materialized in the projection and then disappeared. Ethan's heart rate quickened. He realized the choice wasn't random, and it wasn't negotiable. Somehow, Liara had decided that he, an ordinary human, was going to play a role in something far beyond his understanding. Within an hour, a shuttle descended from the sky, sleek and silver, almost blending with the asteroid field. Ethan packed his belongings quickly, not trusting his own thoughts. She was taller than he expected, her presence commanding attention even without words. Her eyes, green like the glow of the twin suns of her planet, studied him closely. "Do not be nervous," she said, her voice softer now. "I am not your enemy." Ethan nodded, though his mind raced. "Why me?" he asked again, unable to suppress his curiosity. "Because you are human," Liara replied simply. "And humans surprise us in ways we cannot predict. You will be useful." Ethan swallowed. He had heard stories about humans being underestimated, but never like this. He had survived asteroid storms, malfunctioning machinery, and pirate raids. And yet this situation made him feel exposed in a way nothing else had. The journey to her planet was long, through regions of space that hummed with energy and occasional flashes of distant stellar storms. Ethan spent most of the time in quiet observation, noting the elegance of the ship and the subtle way Liara's presence filled the space. She did not speak much, but when she did, it was precise, thoughtful, and often left him with more questions than answers. "You will need to understand our ways," Liara said at one point, her eyes fixed on a star outside the window. "The court, the nobles, the rituals, they are all complex. But you will adapt. Humans are resilient." "I hope so," Ethan said, unsure if he was ready for what awaited him. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "You already have qualities others do not. Courage, ingenuity, honesty. They are rare in your kind and in ours." The compliment felt strange coming from a princess. Yet Ethan sensed no falsehood. There was an intensity in her gaze, an acknowledgement that he understood more than he realized. When they finally arrived at Liara's planet, the sight took Ethan's breath away. Towering crystalline spires glimmered under a sky that shifted in color, from violet to deep gold. Flying vessels zipped between the structures, leaving trails of light behind them. The city was alive, vibrant, and utterly alien. Yet there was a beauty in its order, a harmony in its chaos. Liara guided him through the palace gates, and Ethan found himself surrounded by beings of various shapes and sizes. Some had wings, some had elongated limbs, and others seemed to shimmer as if light passed through them. Yet all eyes turned to him with curiosity, some with judgment, others with amusement. "You will need to hold your ground," Liara said quietly. "The court is not always kind to outsiders." Ethan nodded, his stomach twisting. He had survived space storms and mechanical failures, but court politics was something else entirely. Still, he refused to show fear. The first encounter with the nobles was intense. They circled him with sharp words and sharper eyes, testing his reactions, probing for weaknesses. Ethan spoke carefully, answering questions honestly but never over-explaining. Slowly, he noticed some nobles' expressions shift from skepticism to reluctant acknowledgement. Later, as he walked through the gardens with Liara, he dared to ask the question that had been on his mind since the journey began. "You really know who I am, don't you?" Liara's eyes softened, but there was still that unmistakable strength in her gaze. "Yes," she said. "I know your past, your skills, your character. And I know that you are not someone who will falter when the stakes are high. That is why I chose you." Ethan felt a mixture of pride and unease. The choice was flattering, but the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. He had expected a quiet life of engineering and solitude, not the attention of an alien princess and the scrutiny of an entire royal court. Night came, and with it, a sense of calm in the sprawling palace. Ethan sat by a balcony, looking out at the glowing city below. He thought about the strange turn his life had taken, how a routine day fixing drones had led to this. He felt a strange excitement, a spark he had not felt in years. Liara joined him quietly, standing beside him as they gazed at the stars. "You are ready," she said softly. "Even if you do not realize it yet." Ethan looked at her, and for the first time, he felt that perhaps she was right. He was a human, in an alien world, underestimated and out of place. But he was also capable of more than anyone had guessed, and somehow, Liara had seen that before he did. "I hope I don't mess this up," he admitted. "You won't," Liara replied. "Because you are not meant to fail. Not in this." The night deepened, but Ethan felt no fear, only a growing determination. Whatever lay ahead in this alien court, he would face it with the one thing humans had in abundance: courage and resilience. And somehow, he felt that Liara had chosen him not just for a ceremony, but because she believed in what humans could do, something even he had yet to fully understand. By the time he returned to his quarters, Ethan realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just an engineer on a distant outpost. He was part of something far greater. Something that spanned stars, species, and secrets. And as he drifted into sleep, the thought that kept returning to him was simple and undeniable. He had been chosen. And perhaps, for the first time, he was exactly where he was meant to be. The palace felt larger every day. Ethan wandered through halls lined with tall crystal windows that reflected shifting sunlight like liquid rainbows. Every corner held a new marvel: floating gardens, corridors that hummed with energy, and statues that seemed alive. Yet, amidst all this beauty, Ethan felt like an outsider. A human in a world built for beings who could fly, stretch, or glow with light. Princess Liara walked beside him during most of the day, a quiet companion whose presence carried both comfort and subtle challenge. She never explained the customs outright. Instead, she watched him closely, letting him figure things out on his own. Her tests were not cruel, but they were precise challenges designed to show whether he had patience, intelligence, and courage. During one of the morning gatherings, the nobles questioned him sharply. "How can a human be suitable to represent the princess?" one of them demanded. A tall alien with luminous skin and eyes that seemed to pierce through him. "They are simple creatures, bound by primitive instincts. Do you really believe he can understand our ways?" Ethan felt the tension, but he kept his composure. "I may not know everything about your customs," he said calmly, "but I can learn, and I will act with honesty and fairness. That is something any being can understand." A murmur spread through the assembly. Some nobles whispered in disbelief. Others studied him silently. Uncertain, Liara observed quietly from her seat, her expression unreadable. Yet, Ethan noticed a slight nod from her when the murmurs died down. Later, in the palace gardens, Liara addressed him more directly. "You handled yourself well today. Do not mistake their sharp words for personal attack. Many have never seen humans face scrutiny without fear or anger." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow, feeling a mix of pride and exhaustion. "It's not easy," he admitted. "Everything here is overwhelming. The court, the customs, even just walking through the halls, it's different from anything I've known." "That is precisely why I chose you," Liara said softly. "You do not come from privilege, power, or influence. You are unshaped by arrogance. That makes you strong in ways they cannot measure. That is rare, Ethan." He wanted to ask her how she knew so much about him, but he held back. There was a quiet understanding between them that words were often unnecessary. Over the next few days, Ethan faced the subtle and not-so-subtle tests of the court. During a formal banquet, he had to navigate customs involving gestures, toasts, and ceremonial words in languages he barely understood. One noble intentionally challenged him by offering a complicated phrase meant to humiliate him, but Ethan remembered a trick he had learned back home to mirror body language and tone. He managed to respond with confidence, earning a shocked look from the noble and a barely perceptible smile from Liara. Later, he discovered that the princess had been observing his interactions from a private gallery. "You adapted," she said quietly when she joined him later. "More quickly than I expected. That will serve you well. You will face many who underestimate you. Not because they are cruel, but because they cannot see what humans are capable of." Ethan began to realize that Liara's choice had layers he had not understood at first. This was not about appearances, titles, or politics. She had seen something in him that even he did not fully recognize. The human ability to think creatively under pressure, to act with courage even when the outcome was uncertain, and to hold to a moral code, despite risk. Yet, not all days were victories. One morning, as Ethan walked through the training grounds, a group of nobles cornered him. They presented a challenge, a test of agility, reflexes, and endurance. They expected him to fail, to be humiliated in front of the entire court. The test involved navigating a course filled with moving platforms, energy barriers, and creatures designed to simulate danger. Ethan took a deep breath, recalling every survival drill, every emergency procedure he had ever learned. He moved carefully but decisively, observing the rhythm of the obstacles, predicting the timing of the creature's movements. Step by step, he advanced, dodging and leaping with precision. When he crossed the finish line, the nobles were silent, stunned that a human had completed what they believed impossible. Liara, watching from above, allowed herself a smile this time. "You see, Ethan," she said later, "humans are underestimated. That is why we often succeed where others fail. Courage is not just physical. It is also in the mind, in the heart. You have both." Despite the successes, Ethan felt the weight of his position. Being the princess's fiancé, even pretend, meant constant observation. Every word, every action, every glance was scrutinized. Some nobles whispered behind his back, while others openly tested his patience and knowledge. Still, Ethan refused to retreat into fear or arrogance. He remembered Liara's words, and he acted with honesty and integrity, slowly earning a measure of respect in the court. One afternoon, as they walked through a quiet part of the palace, Liara spoke again. "Do you trust me, Ethan?" He paused, unsure what she meant exactly. I think I want to. You've been honest, and you've helped me understand this place. But trust. I don't know yet. Good, she said, her eyes serious. Trust is not given lightly. It must be earned. And you will earn it. Through choices, not words. Observe carefully. Act with integrity. And you will see why I chose you. Ethan felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would meet them. He would not just survive in this alien world, he would prove himself worthy, even if it was only to the princess who had chosen him. But danger was closer than he realized. During a private meeting in the palace archives, he stumbled upon a coded message hidden in a historical record. It hinted at a conspiracy, a group of nobles planning to undermine Liara and possibly remove her from power. The words were carefully disguised, but Ethan's mind, trained in patterns and problem-solving, detected the warning. He knew he could not ignore it. Acting on impulse could draw suspicion, yet doing nothing could endanger the princess and possibly himself. He spent hours studying the message, cross-referencing it with other records, trying to piece together the plan. The complexity of it astounded him. This was not just court intrigue. It was a calculated attempt to destabilize the throne. Liara noticed his focus and questioned him gently. You are thinking too deeply, Ethan. Let the palace handle its own politics. I cannot. Ethan replied firmly. I may be human, but I can see what others cannot. I think something is happening. Something that could hurt you. Liara studied him, her gaze intense but unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. You are perceptive. Perhaps that is why I chose you. Humans see differently. You may not understand everything, but your insight will be valuable. Follow your instincts, but be cautious. That night, as Ethan lay in his quarters, he reviewed the palace corridors in his mind. Every door, every guard rotation, every hallway that led to vulnerable areas, he mapped it mentally, planning for any possible emergency. He did not sleep well, but he felt alive in a way he had not felt in years. The stakes were high, the danger real, and yet he was ready to face it. Over the next few days, Ethan quietly monitored the situation. Small anomalies, a misplaced security drone, an unattended door, a whisper of conversation in the hall confirmed his fears. A group of nobles was indeed plotting against the princess. Yet, as he planned his next move, he realized that he was no longer just a human outsider. He had allies, both among the loyal palace staff and the few nobles who respected his courage and intelligence. One evening, Liara approached him in the palace courtyard, the twin moons casting silver light over the gardens. You are learning quickly, she said, and you are seeing the danger. That is good. But remember, courage without strategy can be foolish. Balance is the key. Ethan nodded. I understand. I will be careful. You already have, she said, her voice softening. That is why I chose you. Not for your strength alone. Not for your skills. But for your heart. You think clearly, act wisely, and face fear without faltering. That is what humans can do. Ethan, that is what makes you remarkable. For the first time, Ethan felt a real sense of belonging. He was a human, yes, but he was not powerless. He was not insignificant. He had a role, a purpose, and someone who believed in him even before he fully believed in himself. The palace, the court, and the conspiracies would challenge him. But he no longer feared them. He was ready to act, ready to prove that humans could rise to any challenge, and ready to show Princess Liara that the qualities she had seen in him were real. As he looked up at the stars through the crystal windows, Ethan realized that his life had changed forever. The pretend engagement was more than a political arrangement. It was a test, a partnership, and perhaps the beginning of something much greater. And for the first time, he felt that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The palace seemed calm, but Ethan knew better. Every hall, every corridor, even the soft hum of the lights above could conceal danger. His instincts told him that the conspiracy he had uncovered was not idle whispers, it was real. And time was slipping away. The Taralis Empire was vast, full of ambitious nobles who would take any opportunity to seize power. And as the princess's fiancé, even pretend, Ethan had become a target. Liara noticed his heightened awareness. She had spent hours observing him during his rounds, silently judging how he moved through the palace, how he spoke to the staff, and how he handled small disturbances. "You are too tense," she said one morning, as they walked through the gardens. "But that is not a weakness. It is awareness. Stay alert. But do not let fear rule your actions." Ethan nodded, grateful for her guidance. "I've seen enough to know that fear is often a better teacher than comfort," he admitted. "But I also know I need to act carefully. One wrong move, and the entire palace could be thrown into chaos." She stopped walking and turned to him. Her green eyes seemed to pierce straight through him. "That is why I chose you. Ethan, you are human, and humans are unpredictable to the galaxy. You think, adapt, and act where others fail. That is strength. But even strength must be guided by strategy." It was during one of the late-night patrols that Ethan noticed the first tangible sign of the plot. A guard, unfamiliar and unusually nervous, slipped through a side corridor. Ethan followed discreetly, staying hidden in the shadows. The guard met with a cloaked figure in a secluded hall, exchanging what seemed to be a small data chip. Ethan's heart pounded. He had discovered a direct line to the conspirators. He returned to his quarters and studied the data chip carefully. It contained coded messages, schematics of the palace, and plans for an attack during a ceremonial event that was scheduled in a week. The plan was precise. A small group of nobles intended to abduct Princess Liara during a public celebration, creating a crisis that could destabilize the empire. Ethan knew he could not confront them alone. He began to identify allies, palace staff who had grown to trust him, minor nobles who respected his courage, and even some of the royal guards who valued honesty over hierarchy. Slowly, a network formed, quiet but determined. Days passed, and the ceremonial event approached. The palace buzzed with excitement and tension, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the surface. Ethan practiced contingency plans, mapped escape routes, and coordinated signals with his allies. He moved silently, a human among beings of extraordinary abilities, yet confident in his own skills. During one practice drill with the Royal Guard, Ethan's ingenuity became evident. The guards demonstrated a security system that relied on energy barriers, coded locks, and surveillance drones. The system was designed to be nearly impenetrable. Yet, with careful observation, Ethan discovered a weakness in the sequence of the barriers, a small delay that could be exploited. He explained the flaw to the guards, and though skeptical at first, they acknowledged that a human's perspective had revealed what their trained eyes had missed. Liara, watching from above, allowed herself a rare smile. Finally, the day of the ceremony arrived. The palace was filled with dignitaries, nobles, and foreign representatives. Ethan stood close to Liara, blending into the crowd while remaining vigilant. The princess moved gracefully, her attention split between the rituals and subtle glances at Ethan, ensuring he stayed aware of potential threats. Hours into the ceremony, Ethan noticed a small group of cloaked figures moving unnaturally through the crowd. His instincts screamed danger. He signaled to his allies, who subtly positioned themselves between the conspirators and the princess. The tension in the air was palpable. One wrong move, one careless glance, and everything could collapse. When the conspirators tried to corner Liara near the ceremonial dais, Ethan acted. He intercepted them with calculated precision, using a combination of agility, quick thinking, and his knowledge of the palace layout. The guards moved in, and a struggle ensued. Ethan directed his allies, ensuring the princess's safety while keeping the confrontation contained. In the chaos, Ethan noticed the leader of the plot, a tall, noble, with sharp features attempting to escape with a data device containing sensitive information. Without hesitation, Ethan pursued him through a labyrinth of corridors, using shortcuts only he would have known. The noble, surprised by a human's determination and cunning, faltered. Ethan managed to disarm him and retrieve the device. By the time he returned, the princess was safe, the the conspirators detained, and the palace secure. Liara met him in a private garden afterward, her eyes filled with admiration. "You acted decisively," she said. "You were not reckless, but you were brave. That is why you are here, Ethan. You see what others overlook and act when necessary. You are remarkable." Ethan shook his head, still catching his breath. "I didn't do it alone. I had help," she smiled softly. "Even so, it was your courage and human ingenuity that saved the day. The Teralis Empire often underestimates humans. That is why they can accomplish things no one expects." For the first time, Ethan felt a deep connection with Liara, not just as a princess or a ceremonial fiancé, but as someone who saw his true worth. He realized that the pretend engagement had evolved into something far more meaningful. It was a partnership built on trust, courage, and mutual respect. In the days following the incident, the palace slowly returned to normal. The conspirators were placed under investigation, and security measures were tightened. Ethan continued to navigate court life, but now he did so with newfound confidence. He understood that the princess had chosen him not for appearances, but because he had qualities that mattered most in times of crisis: intelligence, courage, and integrity. Liara began to involve Ethan more in political discussions, valuing his perspective on matters of strategy and security. Other nobles, previously skeptical, began to acknowledge his presence, some with respect, others with cautious admiration. The human had proven that he was capable, and that alone shifted the balance of perception within the court. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens under the soft glow of the twin moons, Liara spoke quietly. "Ethan, do you understand why I picked you?" He looked at her, unsure how to answer. "Because I'm human," he said, attempting a light tone. "Not just because you are human," she replied, her voice gentle but firm. "Because humans are underestimated. They have courage, ingenuity, and a moral compass that is rare in this galaxy. I saw that in you before anyone else did. You have proven it now. And more than that, I trust you." Ethan felt a warmth he had never experienced before. It was not just admiration, it was respect, recognition, and a connection that went beyond titles or politics. He realized that Liara's choice had never been about ceremony alone. It was about character, about values, and about seeing someone for who they truly were. The night deepened, and the palace gardens grew quiet. Ethan and Liara walked side by side, neither speaking for long stretches, simply observing the beauty around them. The danger had passed, but the lessons remained. Courage, trust, and ingenuity had carried them through, and Ethan knew that more challenges would come. Yet he felt ready. He was no longer just a human engineer on a distant outpost. He was a protector, a partner, and a symbol of what humans could accomplish when underestimated. And he could sense that Liara saw him not just as a tool or a ceremonial fiancé, but as an equal, someone who could face danger, think clearly, and act with courage. By the time they returned to the palace, Ethan understood something profound. The pretend engagement had transformed into a real connection, one built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. The Teralis Empire might see him as an ordinary human, but he knew his true worth, and so did Liara. As he settled into his quarters that night, Ethan reflected on the events of the past week. He had faced danger, deception, and political intrigue. He had protected the princess, thwarted conspiracies, and proven his capabilities. Yet, more than anything, he had discovered something about himself: that humans could rise to challenges far beyond what anyone imagined. And in the quiet of the palace, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. For the first time in his life, he felt that he belonged not just among humans, but in a galaxy full of wonders, dangers, and possibilities. He was exactly where he was meant to be, and the future, uncertain as it might be, held promise. The stars above shimmered through the palace windows, reminding him that the galaxy was vast and full of unknowns. But Ethan was ready. He would face whatever came next with courage, wisdom, and the human spirit that Liara had seen in him from the start. And in doing so, he knew he would continue to surprise those who underestimated him, and perhaps, in time, change the way the galaxy viewed humans forever. The days after the failed conspiracy were tense, but the palace had regained its outward calm. Ethan moved through the halls with a sense of purpose, no longer uncertain about his place in the Terrorless Empire. He was no longer just a human engineer. He had become a protector, a strategist, and a symbol of what humans could accomplish. Yet he knew that true peace was fragile. There were always those who coveted power, always those who underestimated others. Princess Liara summoned him to a private chamber early one morning. The room was high above the city, with tall windows that allowed sunlight to pour in and illuminate the polished floors. She stood near the center, her posture commanding. Yet there was a softness in her eyes as she looked at him. "You have done more than I expected, Ethan," she said. "Not only have you thwarted the conspirators, but you have also proven your value to the court. They see you differently now, even if some would never admit it." Ethan bowed slightly. "I did what I had to do. The safety of the princess and the palace comes first." Liara nodded, then took a step closer. "It was more than duty. You acted with courage, intelligence, and honor. Those qualities are rare, and yet you possess them naturally. That is why I chose you not just as a ceremonial fiancé, but as someone I trust implicitly." Ethan felt a warmth rise in his chest. The words were simple, but their meaning was profound. He had faced danger, navigated alien customs, and stood against powerful nobles, and now he was being acknowledged not just for his actions, but for who he truly was. Before he could respond, an alarm blared through the palace. Red lights flashed, casting long shadows across the room. Ethan and Liara instinctively moved toward the source of the disturbance. Security drones zipped through the halls, and guards rushed past, their expressions tense. Ethan's heart pounded. Despite the recent events, a new threat had emerged. The display panels showed intruders breaching the outer defenses of the palace. This was no ordinary attack. It was coordinated, precise, and ruthless. "Stay behind me," Ethan said, his voice steady. He had learned quickly that calmness in the face of danger could influence others. "We will get through this together." The intruders moved swiftly, humanoid shapes clad in dark armor, their technology unfamiliar and advanced. Ethan analyzed their patterns, predicting their movements based on his observations of security systems and palace layouts. Using a combination of quick thinking and agility, he guided Liara through hidden passages, avoiding detection while coordinating with the palace guards. Despite the danger, Ethan's mind worked like a machine. He calculated the best positions to intercept the intruders, predicted their routes, and used the palace's defenses to his advantage. The humans' ingenuity complemented the Terrorless Guard's strength and speed, creating a coordinated effort that turned the tide. When they finally reached the throne room, Ethan saw the leader of the attackers, a figure cloaked in black, with a device capable of disabling the palace's energy barriers. The leader aimed to capture Liara, believing that taking the princess would give them control of the empire. Ethan acted without hesitation. Using a combination of leverage and precision, he disrupted the device, sending sparks flying. The leader stumbled, giving the guards the opportunity to overwhelm the attackers. In moments, the threat was neutralized, and the palace was secure once again. Liara turned to Ethan, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You acted decisively," she said. "You did not falter, even when the odds were against us. That is why I trust humans. They think in ways no one expects." Ethan shook his head, exhausted but focused. "I did what anyone would do to protect you and the palace." "No," Liara said softly, stepping closer. "What you did required courage, clarity, and the ability to act under pressure. Many could not have done what you did. That is why I chose you, Ethan. You are not ordinary. You are extraordinary." For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of the princess's words. The pretend engagement, The ceremonial role he had been thrust into had transformed into something far greater. It was no longer a matter of politics, it was a partnership based on trust, courage, and mutual respect. In the following days, the palace celebrated the bravery of the guards and the human who had protected the princess. Ethan received recognition not only for his actions but also for his insight, quick thinking, and unwavering determination. Even the skeptical nobles began to show respect, acknowledging that humans could contribute in ways the galaxy often overlooked. Liara involved Ethan more in strategic planning and discussions about the Empire's future. His perspective as a human brought fresh ideas, innovative solutions, and approaches that others would have dismissed. Slowly, the court began to see that his presence was not a liability, but an asset. One evening, Ethan and Liara walked through the palace gardens, the twin moons casting silver light over the crystal pathways. The air was calm, filled with the scent of alien flowers, and for a moment, the weight of responsibility seemed lighter. "You've changed things," Liara said quietly. "Not just in the palace, but in how humans are seen in this galaxy. They underestimated you, and yet you proved them wrong. That is rare, Ethan." He looked at her, a small smile forming. "I didn't do it alone. You guided me, observed me, and gave me the chance to show what I could do. Without you, I wouldn't have known what was possible." Liara's eyes softened. "Perhaps. But it was your courage and ingenuity that mattered. You acted when others hesitated. You saw solutions where they saw obstacles. That is what makes humans remarkable." For the first time, Ethan felt a profound connection to the princess, not as a ceremonial figure, but as someone who truly understood and valued him. The pretend engagement had become real in its own way. Built on trust, shared experiences, and the recognition of each other's strengths. As they continued to walk, Ethan realized that his life had transformed completely. He had started as an ordinary human, living in a remote outpost, unnoticed by the galaxy. Now, he was a hero, a trusted partner to a princess, and a symbol of what humans could achieve when underestimated. Liara paused, looking out over the city below. "Ethan, the alliance is secure, the palace is safe, and the conspirators have been dealt with. But this is just the beginning. There will always be challenges, new threats, and uncertainties. Are you ready to face them?" Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility and the excitement of possibility. "I am," he said firmly. "Whatever comes next, I'll face it. Not just as a human, but as someone who can make a difference." Liara nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Then you are exactly what the Empire needs. And perhaps, what I need as well." The stars above glittered, reminding Ethan of the vastness of the galaxy and the endless possibilities it held. He had learned that courage, intelligence, and integrity were not limited by species or appearance. Humans, underestimated and overlooked, could rise to extraordinary challenges. And in the heart of an alien empire, he had proven it. That night, as Ethan settled into his quarters, he reflected on the journey. The pretend engagement had begun as a political arrangement, a ceremonial duty that he did not want. Yet, through courage, trust, and action, it had transformed into a real connection with someone who saw his true worth. The experience had tested him, challenged him, and revealed strengths he had not known he possessed. He realized that being human in a galaxy of extraordinary beings was not a weakness, it was a strength. Humans thought differently, acted creatively, and faced danger with a combination of courage and adaptability that others often overlooked. Princess Liara had seen this, and through her choice, Ethan had discovered his own potential. The palace was quiet, but Ethan felt alive in a way he had never known. He had faced danger, thwarted conspiracies, and earned the trust of a princess and a court that had doubted him. The future was uncertain, full of challenges yet to come, but he felt ready. And as he looked out at the galaxy beyond the palace windows, Ethan understood something profound. Humans could rise above expectation, make a difference, and leave a mark on worlds far beyond their own. He had been chosen, not just to play a role, but to prove that courage, intelligence, and integrity were universal values, and that humans, even ordinary ones, could achieve greatness. Princess Liara stood beside him silently, and for a moment, neither spoke. There was no need. In that quiet, starlit moment, both understood that their partnership, born of a pretend engagement, had become something far more real. It was a connection forged in trust, tested by danger, and strengthened by mutual respect. Ethan felt a sense of fulfillment he had never imagined. He was exactly where he was meant to be, doing what he was meant to do, and proving that humans could rise to challenges no one expected. The galaxy might be vast, mysterious, and dangerous, but he would face it with courage, wit, and the unyielding spirit that Liara had seen from the very beginning. And as the stars continued to shine above, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning of an extraordinary journey, not just for him, but for all who underestimated the strength of a human heart.